Following new developments on the Trump administration's long-awaited Middle East peace plan, President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and White House Mideast envoy Jason Greenblatt will wait until after Israel's election to release any major details. They hope it will solve the decades-old conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. However, they don't want it to interfere with Israel's election next month, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's future is at stake. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News State Department and Foreign Affairs reporter Christina Ruffini. She's with me now from Washington. Christina, previous U.S. administrations and the international community have all supported a two-state solution between Israelis and Palestinians. What do we know so far about the peace plan and if it addresses that main concern?
Well, we don't actually know much because we haven't seen it. In June, the Trump administration unveiled a part of it, this economic portion that was aimed at creating a $50 billion fund to lift Palestinian and Arab state economies. The biggest issue is how long it's taking them to reveal the political part, which is the main part of this plan. Last year at the UN, Mr. Trump said it would be coming out in a matter of months. Well, the UN General Assembly is coming up here in a few weeks and still nada. Now, the White House Special Envoy for Israel, as you mentioned, Jason Greenblatt, says they're going to hold on to it until after the Israeli elections at the end of the month. It reminds me a bit of that West Wing episode where they asked one of the staffers if the president has a secret plan to fight inflation, and that's why they haven't released it to the press. So, you know, maybe it's a secret plan to solve the Mideast peace process, because so far we still haven't seen much of it.
Why is the U.S. concerned about releasing that plan before or after Israel's election? I mean, we know are they worried about Netanyahu's future there?
Yeah, they are. Netanyahu eked out a victory in the last election, partly because he's seen to have such a close relationship with the White House. The U.S. moved the embassy to Jerusalem. It's been incredibly tough on Iran, pulling out of the nuclear deal, the JCPOA. These were all seen as victories for Netanyahu and helped him keep his job. However, his Likud party didn't get enough seats to rule with a big enough majority, and they couldn't pull together a coalition government. So now he's got to run again. The prevailing wisdom is this is strategic, because if this plan involved any big concessions to the Palestinians, it could potentially negatively impact Netanyahu and compromise the re-election of a very close ally to President Trump.
Let's move over now to Afghanistan. You talked to your sources at the State Department about the ongoing U.S. Taliban peace talks. What can you tell us there on that front?
They are ongoing. We were hoping for a deal possibly this weekend. I think, judging by the silence or relative silence coming from Doha, that's unlikely. I think now maybe next week, the end of next week, or even the week after that, is looking more like we would have a chance at getting some sort of a deal announced. It's been very difficult to get anyone even off the record to talk about details of the plan, the framework, what it looks like, what's being agreed to. And I think that's partially because it is so tenuous, and they're afraid even a few words, one direction or the other, could antagonize someone and crater the whole thing.
And have you asked anyone how they can possibly make a deal with the Taliban, considering that, I mean, do we even trust them to keep their word?
The administration, I have. The administration says it knows who it's sitting across the table from, and it's going into these negotiations with open eyes. A State Department spokesman told CBS News yesterday, the agreement we're working on is not based on trust. It will be based on clear requirements and commitments subject to our monitoring and verification, and will be in sync with the understandings we reach with the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Because remember, whatever is agreed to in Doha still has to after that, they have to go negotiate with the people actually running the country, which is the democratically elected government in Kabul. But it's a fair question, and one that many have and will continue to ask as this process hopefully moves forward.
And before I let you go, the Trump administration announced it'll change its citizenship policy for some children born to U.S. service members abroad. That includes even people, men and women who work in the clandestine services, who sometimes spends decades overseas. What can you tell us about this?
So there was a big hubbub about this yesterday. My understanding is the rule changes sound like a bigger deal than they actually are. Look, I'm an Army brat. My brother was born in Germany. And when I initially read this, I called him and jokingly told him that he was German now and should sprechen Sie Deutsch. But that's not actually how it works. It's not retroactive. The changes also do not impact the way most Americans serving abroad, either for the military, clandestine services, foreign service, get citizenship for their kids. Apparently, unbeknownst to me, there are two ways to go about this under Sections 320 and 309 of the Child Citizenship Act. Most people use Section 309, which is actually a consular process through the Department of State. Basically, if you're an American and you have a kid overseas, you can still go through this same process and get your screaming bundle of joy certified as a citizen of the USA. What the law did was tighten up rules for children who were not automatically naturalized citizens at birth. I know it's all complicated, but the bottom line here is it's not really any harder to make your kid American if you're an American serving abroad, and unfortunately, I cannot deport my brother to Germany.
Well, if he ends up doing that, you'll have a place to stay in Germany with him. Look at it that way.
I've always wanted to see Berlin.
Christina, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Omar.